Hello, everybody. Happy Friday and happy Valentine's Day to you, Ted, to you as well. As you can see,
And
this
to
is
you as well.
my festive, apparently I'm wearing Kathy the cartoons
The Kathy
shirt.
Guy's White shirt.
I didn't know. I didn't realize
For
I did
people
that.
who are under 100 years old, Kathy was a comic strip that ran in hundreds of newspapers across the United States. Newspapers were a thing that were printed on paper and were
Yes.
distributed to homes and businesses and motels. And then they had the news and stuff and comic strips. And one of these comic strips, this girl, she always wore a shirt with a heart on it like that. I don't think it was cut out. I assumed it was a patch. Like it was a
Maybe.
1970s comic strip, right? If you remember those 70s shirts with the heart on them.
Yeah, this is a cutout. Of course, this is as festive as I get for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I might wear a festive shirt. So this is it. I'm Manila Chan. That over there is Ted Rall. You are tuned in to the Ted Manila Information Show, or TMI Show for short. We, of course, bring you way too much information just like that. See, who'd have known? Kathy the cartoon. I'm wearing a shirt, an homage to Kathy Geiswhite's cartoon strip.
Knowingly or unknowingly, yeah.
Unknowingly. I just thought this was like a cute juvenile shirt to wear.
And it is.
And it is. So it's for the holiday. So warning again, we do drop some F-bombs, although we try not to do it, Ted, especially when we're welcoming new guests.
Apparently, we're not supposed to do it in the first 8 minutes of the program, according to producer Robbie.
Oh, I
There's
think
some kind of algorithmic rule.
Yes, we have broken that rule many times.
You're very kind. When you say we, you mean me.
I do too, but I mean,
me. Like, I'm more guilty.
I'm trying to not do that as much, only because like I said, my kid will ask me, Mom, what does f mean? The F word, and I'm like why? He's like, why did you say I dropped, the other day I dropped a pasta sauce, the lid, and it it's caked up with pasta sauce, and it just got all over my socks, and then I went, F word.
Well,
and he's like, Mom, why did you say that?
What does that have to do with? What does this action have to do with reproduction? I don't understand.
So I'm trying my best not to do that. We are live, guys, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So please be sure to like and follow this show. And as Ted said, we're trying to make the first 8 minutes F-bomb free. Mm-hmm. And also, Ted, the first 8 minutes, from my understanding, just from having been a viewer, is oftentimes if people are subscribing and they like or whatever, when they subscribe, sometimes the algorithms take a while to notify people. So sometimes, like in the first 4-5 minutes, we're already on the stream and people are finally getting the notification, but it's like 5, 6, 7 minutes into the program. So,
okay, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know what the delay is. I don't know if that's just a Rumble thing, but a lot of people have inboxed me and told me that there's some sort of delay, that they don't get notified or get their reminder. So
so this is the reminder, that we're live and streaming.
Yeah, this is
on Rumble,
us buying. Right? This is us buying time, so people can get their delayed reminders and then they pop on.
This could also have something to do with they don't have a good signal. They're you know what I mean? Like they're in the basement doing the laundry, and then they come upstairs. And
true.
2 minutes later, 4 minutes later, the message pops up.
That could be true.
You know what I mean?
On today's
in New York, it's like you're in the subway. You come out of the subway. And dung, 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 dung.
That could be true. And because even if people know what time to log in, and we do have people that actually tune in on their own accord because they know the time.
Yes, imagine.
Even like us oldies who look at watches and clocks.
Oh my God. I love an ordinary watch. I would do an entire show about, I collect watches, and never, I don't know if you know this, but these days, after the introduction of the Apple Watch, old-fashioned wristwatches became much more popular, and the prices started to rise. And there's been studies that show that the vast majority of the time when people take their phone out of their purse, their fanny pack, God forbid, or their pocket, you have a fanny pack? We're gonna
thing again.
We're gonna talk about that anyway.
It is a thing.
Oh my God! Everything that's uncool becomes cool. Anyway, you take out your phone. Most of the time, it's just to look at the time. So rather than take your phone out and risk it being stolen by a brigand or a reprobate, or just like dropping it and breaking it, just look at your watch. That's why you're looking at your
Casio.
Phone. Well, no, or
get a $20 Casio.
You can do that. That's true. There's Timex makes some really nice.
They do.
Cheap watches.
A good sport watch, right? Because like you can bang, like the G-Shock. I used to have one.
Yeah, and you don't care if you bang your. It yeah, no. There's a tendency to bash them when the back of the wrist. But I personally have much nicer watches than that. But like. I have old Art Deco watches from the 1920s and 30s, World War I.
Serious collection.
Sterling silver, like World War I.
That's
pilots
a real
watches.
collection.
I have a real collection.
Oh, like real watches. Yeah, I don't have that. I have a few watches, like a fancy going out watch, right? Mm. And otherwise, like seriously, a Mickey Mouse watch.
Well, I mean, again, the old Mickey Mouse watches they can be quite collectible.
Well,
I'm
sure.
We were talking about comics earlier, and before the show, we were talking a little bit about Peanuts. And, I have a Peanuts watch from the early 1960s that's just stopped. It's driving me nuts. But at least I live in Manhattan, where there's a lot of good dudes who can fix watches.
We don't. Do you know here in Northern Virginia and downtown DC? So when I moved to downtown DC about 11 years ago, there were still a few mom and pop shops, like a watch place, a shoe repair place. There was stuff like that were signs that that downtown DC wasn't entirely gentrified and turned into a strip mall, right? There were still signs of like old Washington DC. Mm-hmm. And I used to go to those. Right. I mean, I'd get my watch repaired, fix the heels on my shoes, whatever. So fast forward to even, 6-7 years in, all gone, Ted. I can't find a watch repair place around here. I can't find a shoe repair place. They're like, because we live in a disposable culture.
It's hard. I mean, in New York City, there's almost no places. Well, like there used to be like I collect old radios that use the vacuum tubes. No place can fix those anymore. All the guys who used to fix them, they're out of business or dead or whatever, or both. And it's just there's like in New York City, I think the last guy who knew how to repair typewriters just died. And so like there's like it's all these like things just go away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would totally do a segment on this.
Although there's some hipsters in the hinterlands who can do these things, like, and you have to ship your stuff out.
Yeah, but that's over in which borough in New York?
Brooklyn.
All the
not
hipsters
anymore
are.
Though. Like they're hips. They can mix you a good drink, but they can't fix you. God. They can't fix a type.
That's not a real hipster then. If you don't have a dude with a beard fixing a watch,
that's like
wearing flannel.
Well, that's a specific. Fixing watches though is really hard. I mean, it's like
I literally don't wear my watches anymore.
Very lethal pieces,
I don't wear my watches anymore because they're all dead.
I had this one watch.
Can't find anyone.
Holy cow! I bought it at a flea market, and I was like, "Oh, let's get it fixed." I couldn't get even the old school guys. This was back in the '90s. They couldn't fix it, and finally, I found the dude. This guy, he was so proud. He couldn't get, normally what they did is cannibalize the parts out of old watches and take it out. But this guy, he was like, I can't get this. This is a weird Dutch watch. So he made the part by hand, bespoke for my watch. And I remember like a year later, I went in to check on him to, drop off something else. And his wife, now widow, said, "Oh, he passed." And I'm like, no fucking way. He's like the last of the Mohicans.
Like,
I mean, and she was like, everybody's just so sad. He was a cool guy, but also
my watch repair guy downtown DC. I imagine the same thing. He was an old Chinese guy that had probably been there for 100 years.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the developers were just waiting on him to die so they can snap up his property.
Sneak up behind him in the street and they go, boo!
Seriously, I mean, he was like right on 14th Street, which is, if anyone knows downtown DC, that's the main drag, right? That goes from Virginia into downtown Washington, DC. Prime location and retail location. And the old man had been there literally forever. And one day I went back there because my watches were dead. He was gone. The shop was gone. He was just gone.
Currently I have like 3-4 watches that need to be repaired, but it's expensive now. And, you know, you and I both are highly underemployed because of Joe Biden. So we're hoping that little talk that Vladimir talked to Donald and said, hey, about those sanctions, you know, we're hoping something like that happened. Yeah.
I know. Sadly, as we discussed with Mark yesterday, I would have to agree that a lot of these sanctions aren't the first order of business for Vladimir Putin because the economy inadvertently did well for Russia.
Yeah, but I think, you know, Mark, I love Mark and he's right about
he's a cynic.
But he's so cynical that sometimes he's too cynical for me. And I think he's just mistaken. I think it's like, why would Putin not want those sanctions?
Well, right. Who wouldn't want?
Why? What advantage?
I mean, SWIFT makes everything.
There's no advantage.
Right. It's good to be back on SWIFT. It's easier. Yeah. It makes life easier for everybody.
You want I mean, I'm sure Russia can use the increased tourism again. Things like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe
we should probably get into some headlines.
Yeah, we should get going because we have our new guest coming.
Okay.
And we have a lot of headlines to get to. But anyway, that's the thing. We're TMI. But
yeah, indeed.
All right.
We go on and on and on. And Trump has supported his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth's comments in which he said that Kiev must accept that returning to the pre-2014 borders is not realistic and that Ukraine is not going to be able to join NATO after all. Hegseth described Ukraine's goals of joining NATO and reclaiming all of its lost territories as unrealistic, said that Ukraine has to prepare for a negotiated peace, probably supported by international troops. On Thursday, he rejected media accusations that the U.S. is betraying its ally Ukraine. When asked about it, Trump said, I don't see any way that a country in Russia's position could allow them, just in their position, could allow them to join NATO. I don't see that happening, Trump said, blaming the conflict on Biden's support for Ukraine joining NATO. Well, I mean, Trump's not saying anything there that is not true. When pressed on whether he asked Hegseth to soften his remarks in order to preserve quote-unquote bargaining chips, Trump said that he hadn't. Somebody told me to. I don't believe that. But I thought that his comments were good yesterday. They're probably good today. What? They're a little bit soft. They're a little bit softer, perhaps. Softer, like soft hands. But I thought his comments from yesterday were pretty accurate. He said, okay, whatever. He reiterated this view following a lengthy phone call with Putin. And that's their first confirmed contact since Trump came back to the White House last month, although they may have spoken on the DL. He also talked to Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, the same day after he talked to Putin. But his decision to talk directly to Putin has apparently left Ukrainian officials and in the EU feeling sidelined. Well, if you're feeling sidelined, that's because you've probably been sidelined. By the way, Manila, I don't know if you saw the long presser that Trump did yesterday. That presser by itself probably was longer than all the combined press appearances of Biden during 4 years.
Oh my God!
But it was, and that's a compliment to Trump, really. But the thing that blew me away is two big takeaways. He wants that the mainstream media is not covering today. Number one, he wants to have a denuclearization and disarmament summit with President Xi of China and President Putin of Russia. He says that all three countries waste way too much money on the military and that they should all get together and decide to spend a lot less money on the military and get rid of their nuclear weapons so that they can focus on their domestic needs. And two, he's named a number. He said he wants to cut the U.S. defense budget by 50% by next year. And
the DOD budget? I missed that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was like, MAGA,
What?
MAGA, MAGA. I was like, okay, like, even if he doesn't mean it, I mean, just saying it. I mean, Bernie Sanders never proposed more than 10% cut. You know, granted, I propose a 90% cut, but that's me.
But I mean, yeah, to have a sitting POTUS make that comment, whether it was his first year, genuine or not.
And in his first year, when it counts, when he has political capital.
Holy cow. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of yesterday's presser.
Yeah.
It went on, like you said, for a long time. So I just,
you would be several hours closer to death, hours you'd never get back.
So I was like,
it'll be like,
right,
while
good for him.
Sit down and watch it today, your son will be off to college by the time you're done.
When I'm done. But look,
it'll be like,
everything.
They grow so fast. Well,
I'm gonna be like, what? Where's my kid? Oh, when did you learn to drive? Like,
oh, wait, I'm a grandmother? Like, when did that happen?
And Trump is still going to be like unfazed, unaged.
In his 17th term.
Like, I'm just.
Or like his head in a bottle, like in Futurama with President Nixon.
He's going to outlive us. He's going to outlive Hegseth. You know, Hegseth will be like some drone face on it. Yeah, this is what's going to happen. Trump laid it out. He had his, for all intents and purposes, Hegseth is one of his henchmen, one of his goons, and he's going to go out there. He marched out there to Europe, and he's like, bro, here's how it's going to be. And that's really what happened. I mean, let's be honest. Let's look at Pete here with his Merca handkerchief.
I hate that fucking handkerchief. I mean,
like,
I will say, though, I want to give props to both RFK Jr. and to Hegseth for bringing back the skinny tie, which is the best tie. Skinny tie is the best looking tie. Skinny tie. When America had skinny ties, skinny lapels, we ruled the world. And
it looks fashionable. I will say that. Not his handkerchief. That's really terrible.
No, the handkerchief is disgusting.
That's a bad one. But anyway, my whole point is,
every time I see him, I think
he went over there.
I see drunken rapist, but that's just me.
Oh boy, I just see Fox like numbnuts.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's.
But I like that. But anyway, he's looking good in that suit. That's a great tie.
He does.
The
presentation.
If you took away his douchey face, his punchy face.
I don't think he's that douchey in the face. I think he looks the part.
But if you look at just his suit and the body, you'd be like, this is like Mad Men or like
totally. Like, I love that show.
The fashion just looks great. It's like,
I think that looks great.
America must join a new frontier. We will go to the moon. He looks great. Really.
Ted, maybe he's going to surprise us. I don't know. He's ex-military guy.
Lose the gay kerchief.
Ex-military guy. I think he went to Yale or
he did. Mm-hmm.
Princeton,
on scholarship. Not apparently. I mean,
not GI Bill.
Maybe he's dumb now, but when he was 17, apparently he was smart enough to get into Yale.
No, he used the GI Bill to go.
But he still had to get admitted.
It's not like so maybe he's smarter than we think.
Harvard, you have to get admitted.
Maybe he's smarter than we give him credit for, but at any rate, he still delivered the 1-2 punch to our so-called allies in Europe, and they are on their back feet now, right, on their heels, because they were like, I mean, they were already wary of a second Trump administration, but here comes Pete Hegseth, who's never held a political position in his life, right? As we said, he's the weekend guy at Fox, and here comes this guy, and he's just basically... I mean, he's right there in front of NATO, basically tearing NATO apart. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. And then we had President Trump.
They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And then we had President Trump back him up on that a few hours later. And then to reveal that Trump called Zelensky after his 90-minute bromance call, talking about movies and all the hot gossip, like... With Vladimir Putin, like, have you seen the latest Gossip Girl or whatever they're watching?
Or did you watch Did you watch The Brutalist? Did you view it as a cautionary tale or like an inspiration?
So after then he calls Zelensky, and Zelensky, like, hello, you don't have a say in this. You really don't. Like you think you do. So here's this guy getting too big for his britches, right? And I think that's what annoys someone like Donald Trump more than anything. If you don't actually understand the pecking order, or you somehow believe you're bigger than the master, he's going to knock you down.
Yeah, I think that's like I always like to tell this story. I used to park in a parking garage on 42nd Street and 9th Avenue, and there were signs on every floor that said, "Know your level." I wanted to steal one of those signs. I always thought it was like good advice for people.
This is the advice for Zelensky. Know your level. The jig is up. Like, somehow he's offended that he was called after the fact to, Trump just called him to let him know, this is the status, dude, of where you're at. The big boys are going to talk. We're bringing this thing to an end.
You sit at the little table.
Right. You're at the kids' table. Yeah. This is what you're having for dinner. You're going to eat it and you're going to like it, and shut up.
That's true.
That's it.
Well, Volodymyr has, some things to be happy about. He'll have that $1 billion that he grifted to keep him warm at night.
He said he's only received half the aid.
He's $500 million. He can nest in there like a cat.
Well, he's got the Lake Como villa in Italy.
That'll help.
That should, whatever.
That'll help. That'll make it all good. Look, he's not Zelensky's sleazy, but he's not dumb. He knew from day one where this was going to end up, and he's just played the grift. Yeah, but Ted, we all knew how this was. Oftentimes, just like deep cover agents, oftentimes when you play that role for too long and you're too invested, you start believing it. All right, so let's move along, because I see our guest has popped into the back green room. Hello, thanks for joining us. All right, we're going to get through this. All right, longtime vax critic RFK Jr. is now the nation's top health official. The Senate has confirmed him along party lines 52-48 to run the Department of Health and Human Services as a member of Trump's cabinet. Only Mitch McConnell, former majority leader, Republican of Kentucky, was the only Republican who voted against it, after previously bucking his party on Hegseth and also Tulsi Gabbard for DNI. The founder of one of the country's most prominent anti-vax groups will now run the nation's vax policy, which is just one part of the nearly $2 trillion federal health portfolio. The final vote was a formality after the Senate Finance Committee last week sent the nomination up to the floor on a party line vote. The full chamber voted 53-47 to end debate and advance the nomination. 4 Republicans would have had to break out, and they obviously didn't. Only McConnell did. McConnell said that he voted no because of vax skepticism. I'm a survivor of childhood portfolio. I will not condone the relitigation of proven cures, and neither will millions of Americans who credit their survival and quality of life to scientific miracles, he said. Kennedy has publicly backed Trump's pledge to end the Ukraine conflict quickly. In a 2023 interview with Tucker Carlson, he said that the U.S. Agency for International Development, also known as USAID, had funneled $5 billion to support protests that led to the 2014 Maidan coup. In the interview, Kennedy described USAID as a front for the CIA. That's also not really telling stories out of school, although that might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but it is true. He also referenced a leaked phone call between Victoria Nuland, who was then a U.S. diplomat and the U.S. ambassador to the Ukraine, in which Nuland was heard selecting members of Ukraine's post-coup government just weeks before the president was overthrown. I've heard that recording.
And dropping F-bombs.
I've heard that recording. They literally
she could have very well been a co-host here.
They were choosing the new government. That's true. True. But she would not have been as good looking as either of us, Manila. So
obviously.
That. Yeah. So I don't think she could rock either my Black Henley or your Kathy shirt.
Obviously not. No. Well, look, I'm going to speed through my thoughts on this. Is one, Mitch McConnell on his way out into retirement before we put him out to pasture is doing every obstructionist thing to his party that he can do, because he was and always has been this anti-Trump, anti-MAGA party. Remember when Trump's first term, he managed to somehow, first he was anti-Trump, and then he somehow managed to get into Trump's good graces, and Trump trusted him. And he is one of the people that undermined the whole MAGA movement in 2016, 2017 to begin with. And I think he was part of the reason that I was there to witness the phone call when the walrus, John Bolton, got the phone call to meet with Trump at CPAC, right? I mean, like I said, I was standing there, which I will be there again next week, actually, for CPAC.
Oh, wow.
So I wonder what I'll witness this time.
Who knows?
I don't know. But McConnell has been the obstructionist to the Trump agenda from the jump. So I think
it wasn't a secret. I mean,
he needs to go.
He did say some stuff on the record before Trump won the nomination. So it was very clear all along. So it's like whatever. I mean, it's symbolic. He knew it wasn't going to move the needle. At least good for him. He didn't have another brain freeze right before he cast his vote.
I mean, that part is sad. I do feel sad for old people, as you guys know.
A 24-year-old Afghan man plowed a white Mini Cooper into a crowd in Munich on Thursday, injuring at least 28 people in the third attack by a migrant in Germany in the last 3 months. This incident comes 10 days before nationwide elections, in which the hard right of Germany is on track for its biggest victory since World War II. The anti-immigrant Alternative for Deutschland party, also known as the AfD, is cruising to a strong second-place finish behind Friedrich Merz's conservative coalition. Bavarian Premier Markus Söder, from the sister party in Merz's center-right alliance, described the incident as a probable terrorist attack. In January, another Afghan, 28 years old, wielding a knife, attacked a group of school kids in a park in the southern city of Aschaffenburg, killing 2 people, including a 2-year-old boy. In December, a 50-year-old Saudi national rammed a BMW into a crowded holiday market in the eastern city of Magdeburg, killing 6 people and injuring 300. Thursday's assault comes the same day another Afghan migrant in his 20s with suspected jihadist motives went on trial for allegedly murdering a police officer and wounding 5 others in a stabbing rampage at an anti-Islam rally in the western city of Mannheim. That happened last May. Despite ruling out an alliance with the AfD, Merz's coalition and the far-right party voted together to nearly pass legislation last month calling on Germany to turn back far more migrants at its border. The AfD, meanwhile, has pledged to fight for mass deportations under a policy Europe's anti-immigrant parties are calling remigration. The safety of the people in Germany will be our top priority. We will consistently enforce law and order, Merz wrote. Everyone must feel safe in our country again. Something must change in Germany. That appearing on X. I think a lot of these attacks are self-radicalized ISIS-K or ISIS members in general. And you're probably going to see more of that. One interesting takeaway here is that this kind of the idea of closing down Germany's borders is, of course, Germany and France were the 2 charter members of the EU, and the main idea of the EU was that there were no border checkpoints whatsoever between any European member state. You can just drive across like you're driving from, Virginia to West Virginia, no problem. And that's not going to be the case if they keep doing this. And so, in a sense, what is the EU? It's still an economic union, but is it really a political union if the borders are shut?
Well, look, North America, as an American, I don't need to get a visa to go to Toronto, nor do I need a visa to go to Mexico City.
Well, you don't need a visa to go to Turkey either. You can just show up.
But I'm
visa
saying
at the airport.
But I'm saying here, just in North America alone, like we have our, I don't know what they decided to call post-NAFTA that we're in a new battle for again. But at any rate, there's an alliance there, right? Like we can go back and forth without asking for a visa. So, but there's border checks still. The Canadians still want to see my passport.
But the U.S., Canada, the United States didn't form a union, a North American union, where the big takeaway was it's going to be really easy to cross the border. You just drive. It's all the difference in the world. I think, Manila, if you probably have sat in one of those Tijuana checkpoints trying to return to the United States in heavy traffic, and that's not seamless.
No.
It's kind of an ordeal. The last time I came back from
mostly because I'm trying to hide my contraband to bring back to the U.S.
There you go. I hope you're not one of those pet smugglers that has the parrot in the hubcap and that kind of thing.
Not animals or living things. Come on, Ted.
Turtles and weird
We're talking about 19-year-old Manila here. So
all right, here we go. Okay, so a new Eye doctors are finding new links between Ozempic and eye problems. A new case series links GLP-1 use to 3 different eye conditions, all of which can lead to, wait for it, blindness. That's not good. The case for GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic possibly causing blindness is building. New paper comes out this week, describes several people who developed eye conditions shortly after they began taking semaglutide and similar medications. Eye doctors at the University of Utah Health and elsewhere published the research. It describes several cases of vision complications possibly tied to these obesity and diabetes drugs. The medications were linked to 3 different eye conditions, all of which can make you blind. And I thought it was just masturbating. But as the doctors caution, the cases alone do not prove that GLP drugs can cause these issues, and more research is needed. Other research has recently suggested a connection between GLP drugs like semaglutide, that's the active ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy, and tirzepatide, Mounjaro, and Zepbound, and a higher risk of certain eye problems. Last summer, for instance, researchers at a specialty eye hospital published a study that found that patients prescribed semaglutide were noticeably more likely to develop non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy.
Ischemic.
That's going to be, and the acronym for that is NAON, which, that's going to be the name of my new post-punk band, a rare condition caused by a loss of blood flow to the optic nerve. This past December, health officials in Denmark called for the EU to formally investigate the potential link between GLP-1 and NAON, following 2 other studies of Danes that found similar results. The latest paper, published in JAMA Ophthalmology, presents a series of 9 cases. 7 of the cases include people who experienced NAON after starting a GLP-1 drug. One person developed papillitis, that's a kind of inflammation of the optic nerve. Another developed paracentral acute middle maculopathy, a type of blood vessel damage in the macula, the central area of the retina that allows for sharp vision. In many cases, people's vision loss stopped or resolved after they stopped using the meds. Although a few maintained their therapy with no lasting issues. Cards on the table, I totally thought about taking Ozempic or something like it. And then I read that,
that's vanity, Ted.
Well, that's right. And then I thought I could be skinnier and in the best way possible, the lazy way, by taking a medicine.
Oh, God.
And anyway, then I read that your weight comes right back on as soon as you stop taking it. So you have to permanently take it. And I was like,
consumer for life.
Screw that. Like, forget it. Like,
alone.
Diet and exercise. I'm all up.
There's no other way. It's like lose weight, lose your vision. Awesome. Like, you get both, Ted. You get to be a skinny blind person.
Explain in the article the link, like how that would presumably work. This is a correlation. I want to know what the causation is. I'd say it sounds bad. Personally, like, you all do whatever you want with your Ozempic and all that.
Sure, of course.
I'm out. Okay. I mean, of course, if I weighed 400 pounds, I'd feel different. But
maybe. But
no,
that's all I have to say is, if you don't, why would anybody choose to become a pharma user for life simply because you want to be skinny, and then at the risk of becoming blind? So, like I said, skinny and blind, or pleasantly plump and healthy. Like, just,
well, you can never, Manila, the old saying, you can never be too rich, too thin, or too blind.
Boy. All right.
And finally, Apple Maps users in the U.S. will see the Gulf of Mexico renamed the Gulf of America. That's how we have to say it from now on. A change made this week to align with President Donald Trump's January executive order, which, frankly, is tarded. The iPhone maker joins Google in adopting the new name, which appears only for American users. Mexican users will still see it called the Gulf of Mexico, while other countries will see both names. Mexico, Cuba, and the U.S. each border the Gulf, which was first named the Gulf of Mexico back in the 16th century. The U.S. controls more than 1,600 miles of the Gulf's coastline. That's a little less than half the total. And its sovereign territory, we talked about this yesterday, extends 12 nautical miles beyond the coast. The country possesses economic rights, whatever that means, over a further 200 miles offshore. The U.S. place names are typically determined by the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, a federal body under the Interior Department founded in 1890. under the presidency of Grover Cleveland. The board rules on hundreds, actually, this would have been Benjamin Harrison, my apologies. The board rules on hundreds of naming conventions annually and has maintained the Geographic Names Information System since the 1970s. In the Gulf's case, the executive order instructed the agency to update the name. Apple's adoption wasn't legally required because, of course, that's a private company, and the president's orders only apply to federal agencies. So obviously this is Apple sucking up to the president, just like all the other tech companies are doing. The thing that I find so mysterious about it is Donald Trump never campaigned on this, right? I mean, it's just sort of, I mean, maybe he blathered about it at a rally once and I missed it because I didn't see all of them. I saw a lot of them. But I mean, he certainly wasn't, this came as a surprise. Like, he's doing what? He's like, and I don't know. It's just distasteful. And you know what I really hate about it is it's not going to go away. Like when a Democrat comes in, they're going to keep it the Gulf of America because that's what always happens. It's like stupid Space Force. We're still stuck with stupid Space Force even when Biden came in. Every dumb thing stays forever. That's my problem.
Well, yeah, obviously he didn't campaign on. I think it's probably something that he just at one of his stump speeches just said, and we're going to make America so great. We're going to make the Gulf great again. And it's going to Gulf of America. You know, it just was one of these off the cuff things. And it became like part of a MAGA mantra. And it just kind of snowballed. And now it's,
by the way,
with all the tech giants.
This does bring up, and I know that the president watches our show every day.
Yes,
so,
obviously.
Mr. President, thank you. We appreciate your support, but you got to start hitting that donate button, cheapskate.
Yes.
But does this mean he's going to rename the Gulf Stream to the Gulf of America Stream?
No, it's just the Gulf.
Well,
but look,
it could be the Gulf of America Stream.
Here's last thing I'll say about this.
The Trump Stream.
The last thing I'll say about this is that I'm not surprised because, yes, none of these companies, Google Maps or Apple or whoever, none of these companies were obligated to change their algorithm to make it read Gulf of America. But I'm not surprised they did it because, remember, all of these tech titans were sitting front row at his inauguration.
Yes, they were.
And they all donated $1 million+ to his inaugural fund that went to all the different parties and the inauguration itself to pay for this and that, the catering and the whatever, the valets and whatever. They all paid money to be there. And then, here we are. Renaming.
Here we are indeed.
Gulf of America.
We are, all right.
So here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
all right.
Here's the thing what's interesting about it to me is, like, these are like, it's like the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, these are just named, these are old names that go back to the age of exploration, right? It's like they're not owned by anyone. Like, nobody owns the Atlantic Ocean. Nobody owns the Arctic Sea. Nobody owns the Indian Ocean. So they just are called what they're called because it's just, that era is over, and whoever named them, and that should be it. I kind of think those things shouldn't be subject to renaming. Like, I don't think the Persian Gulf should be able to be renamed something else. Like, it should always be the Persian Gulf.
When I lived in Dubai, they never, the local Emiratis never referred to it as the Persian Gulf. They referred to it as the Gulf of Arabia.
Oh.
So that's like a local thing.
And that's like Israel, how like they call the West Bank like Judea and Samaria.
Right. It's like, so it's a local, whatever.
Well, it's the politics of naming. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's dumb. All right. It's projection of power. That's ultimately what it is. All right. Let's switch gears. We'll get into our main topic.
The politics of the former American colony of the Philippines is devolving into a Hatfields versus McCoys style blood feud. Sara Duterte, she's the daughter of the previous president, Rodrigo Duterte, was the vice president until she got impeached recently. Now she's also being charged with sedition. At the heart of the clash is a power struggle between two of the Philippines' top political families, the pretty much pro-China Dutertes versus the pro-American Marcoses, whose Bongbong Marcos is the current president. Let's analyze the future of this linchpin country to the Western Pacific and the Pacific Rim. Joining us is Lucio Pitlo III, president of the Philippine Association for Chinese Studies and research fellow at the Asia Pacific Pathways to Progress Foundation. Lucio, thanks for joining us here on the TMI Show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you.
And just to be clear, are you in the Philippines right now?
Yes, I am in Manila right now.
Thank you for joining us. It's very late at night there. It's about 11:40 p.m. over there. Late night. On Valentine's night. Oh my goodness. Well, maybe your date ended early.
Or maybe it has yet to begin.
That's a better way of phrasing it.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much for joining us. There's, so much that's to be unpacked, I think, given the long U.S. history with the islands, and seeing as you're there, this is amazing. Because I thought you were stateside, so this is even better that you're there. You can tell us what's going on. First, can you explain for the viewers? A lot of people don't understand what's happened in the Philippines elections. Bongbong Marcos came back to power, but in a separate party is Sara Duterte, the daughter of Rodrigo. She's the vice president. Can you explain to us how that parliamentary system there works and why they're two separate parties and why they're having a fallout now?
Yeah, so President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is the son and namesake of the former strongman Ferdinand Sr., who, of course, led the country during the 70s, presided over the martial law, checkered part of the country's history. There are those who said that that period was marked with human rights abuses, corruption, cronyism. But some said that discipline, industrialization, nascent, and a sense of security and the need for the country to stay strong, given the secessionism in the South, the communist insurgency, so the need for a strong hand to be able to keep the country together. So, it's a contestation between those who think that it's not all bad, but some say that it's more bad than good. Fast forward to 2022, President the son, Marcos Jr. was able to return to power decades after the end of the martial law, and it seems that of course there was that forgiving and trying to move on. But of course, for people who have suffered during that period of the country's history, to them it's difficult to have closure if the family was not able to come clean, in terms of that part of the country's history and their role in it. Now, of course, in 2022 also we have the union of two powerful political families. Marcos is the bailiwick from the north, in the Ilocos region, Ilocano speaking in the northern part of the country. And then you have Sara Duterte. The Dutertes hail from Mindanao, the second largest island of the country, specifically the Davao region. And so this political alliance made a very historic mandate, massive win in 2022 elections. And but just a little over 2 years of the Marcos administration, we have already seen the fallout, the crack, the open feud between President Marcos Jr. and his Vice President Sara Duterte. And so that shows the fragility of alliances, the lack of institutional political parties in the Philippines, and the continued hold, the sway of political families, political dynasties, lording over towns, provinces, even regions. And so this is, the landscape of Philippine politics heading into the midterm elections this May.
So Sara Duterte this week, I guess the hearings about it happened last week, where they were considering impeaching her it has now happened. I think the upper chamber, the Senate, seems more favorable, right, to the Duterte family, and the representatives seem favorable to the president and his party. How do you see this shaking out? And if and when it does happen, I don't know how this is going to, ultimately result, if she's going to be kicked out of her position. What does that represent in the way of the global power fight from the big powers, the US and China?
Well, so the House of Representatives, where the cousin, the House Speaker is the cousin of President Marcos Jr., and so the
Oh,
leadership of the Congress is seen as, in a way, very aligned with the president when it comes to this issue. And over 240 of the 300 plus members of the lower house of Congress have signed on the impeachment, and they have forwarded it to the Senate. So now, because Congress is on a recess, is on a break, so the Senate president said he's not into convening the Senate in a rush, to tackle the impeachment. So this may have to wait until June, when the new set of senators will come into being. And so between now and June, the momentum for the impeachment, of course, will decelerate, will slow down. Although there is some pressure on different quarters to ask the Congress to try to accelerate the process of the impeachment, could try to convene a special session if need be, even if they're on a recess, just to fast track the impeachment process. But of course, the bigger sideshow is that most people would think that somehow this would have bearing on the 2028 elections, because Sara is seen as one of the strong contenders for that race, and she already announced her interest to aim for the highest post in the land by 2028 to succeed Marcos Jr. And so I think this is where the clash between the two camps become more glaring, because, of course, for Marcos Jr., the concern will be possible political reprisals if, in case, Sara win by 2028. And of course, for Sara, of course, this is a fight for political survival. If she gets impeached, it's likely that she may not be able to run for public office. So
mm,
her bid to become the successor of Marcos Jr. will go down the drain. And so it's a stiff competition between the two camps. Now, of course, there's a tendency to look at this as a proxy, as somehow a proxy war between the U.S. and China, because of the close ties between the Dutertes, especially the former President Rodrigo Duterte, and China. And on the one hand, and then on the other hand, we have President Marcos Jr. Pivoting Philippines relations back to its traditional fold of a strong relations with the U.S. And so some people look at it from that angle.
yeah. I mean, we're looking now on the screen here is a protest in the Philippines. I imagine it's probably downtown Manila. I'm not sure of the location, but they depicted here President Marcos Jr. with a US flag sash, and Sara Duterte wearing a Chinese flag sash. And I think this is what a lot of people outside of the Philippines view this as specifically not only a family feud, right? This is, you might say like the Bush versus, I don't know, who else, who would it be here, Ted? The Bush dynasty
The
versus,
Clintons.
yeah, something like that. But it represents two different poles of power, as you said. And I would say that the most shocking thing for me, having covered news for so many years, is when President Marcos came back to power a couple of years ago. We were obviously here in the United States under President Biden at the time, but he immediately granted the U.S. military permission to build some, 50 facilities, not necessarily bases, but facilities across the string of islands, which I think if you're watching the Indo-Pacific and the action happening there, this is a page taken straight from the George Kennan, containment policy against Russia, but applied to China, and that Bongbong Jr. is playing right into this. What do you think?
Well, yes. So some people also see it that way. The speed by which he navigated, pivoted back to the U.S. In contrast to his predecessor, and of course the enhanced defense cooperation agreement signed in 2014 between the Philippines and the U.S. The original five sites, for the military access of the U.S. was expanded to nine, so there's an additional four, and three of them are up in northern Luzon facing Taiwan. And of course, recently the Philippines also allowed U.S. to deploy a Typhoon mid-range capability. It's a missile system. Uh, Also in northern Luzon, it's actually in the city of Lawag, which is not even an EDCA site. It's a civilian airport in the bailiwick of the Marcoses in that province of Ilocos Norte. And so, if you look at the this rapid development, not to mention larger scale military exercises between the two sides like Balikatan, joint sails in the West Philippine Sea. So all of these things are taking place. So from the Philippine view is that these are efforts to try to push back against Chinese incursions in its exclusive economic zone in the West. But from Beijing's view, this is less about the South China Sea, but more about the Taiwan contingency. And they see the Philippines as signing up to, U.S. efforts to position, to deter any attempts by Beijing to upset the status quo across the Taiwan Strait. And we all know that the reddest of all the red lines of China is Taiwan. And so the Chinese mission here in the Philippines, as well as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in China, made no secret about their view about their assessment of these developments. That they think that Manila is you know
Not
signing
me.
up on this.
I was waiting for that to come up.
Yeah, not me. We're talking about the capital.
Yeah. So yeah. So certainly these are seen as unfriendly by Beijing, but for the Philippines, the this is being projected as a necessary move to try to signal to China, our the country's dismay about increasing incursions, increasing interference in the West Philippine Sea, and also a sense of concern about what's going on in the Taiwan, because the Philippines has a big community there, over 150,000 living and working in that island, and we are the closest the neighbor of Taiwan due south. So a lot of violent incidents last year between the Philippines and China in the West Philippine Sea. So the Philippines thought that the need to send a strong message to China, and ways of doing that would be to strengthen alliance with the U.S. as well as expand security partners to include Japan, and also joint drills with other partners like Australia. Also, Canada, Australia is also increasingly playing a part. Even European partners like France and Germany. So these are efforts being done by the Philippines to strengthen its defense posture in the West as well as in the North.
What is the political basis for this impeachment? What are the charges?
So one complaint was the threat made by Vice President Duterte against the life of President Marcos Jr., um, First Lady, and then the Speaker of the House. So I think she had like a meltdown. Then on I don't know, so what platform, or maybe over Zoom or like a video, and that was caught. So she made this announcement that Probably in reference to the Marcos family, that it would not be possible for Marcos Sr. to be buried in the Libingan ng mga Bayani, which is like a hero cemetery,
Mm,
without the intervention of her father. I mean, Sarah's father, Rodrigo Duterte. It was during the previous Duterte period, the presidency, that President Marcos Sr. Was able to be finally laid to rest in the Hero Cemetery. It was quite controversial because of what happened in martial law, but the
sure.
Duterte government proceeded with it, and so Sara, in a way, saying to the Marcos family that you owe us like debt of gratitude, but all of these things are happening, so it's like you don't honor the
Right.
Quid pro
yeah,
quo, maybe.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, can we pivot to the U.S. now, especially as you mentioned in this your latest op-ed for the South China Morning Post, and you bring up a very interesting point, and I think as we said, President Marcos had made all of these agreements with the Biden administration, both politically, financially, all these agreements were made. But now the Biden administration and what people assumed would be the successor, Kamala Harris, that didn't happen. Donald Trump is back in power in a surprise sweeping victory. And you mentioned in this op-ed the hundreds of thousands of Filipinos that are here in the US that are undocumented and who risk deportation, and the vast amounts of remittances that go from the US back to the islands. What do you think that relationship with Marcos Jr. and Trump will look like, given that there is a strong possibility that a lot of these Filipino migrants might get shipped away?
Yeah, so I think it's one of the priorities of President Marcos Jr. to raise to President Trump the issue about the undocumented or irregular, illegal Filipino overstaying Filipinos in the U.S. So if there's a way to provide legal assistance for them to legally acquire, the status for them to stay in the U.S., or maybe find a way to request for a longer period for them to process their stay, especially for those who do not have criminal record. So I think there are already some Filipino American legal assistance groups that do these things pro bono. But again, it's still a different thing if you have at the top level, President Trump and President Marcos having some kind of understanding that there will be some kind of accommodation, some kind of leeway, grace period to process this, and for the sake of the alliance, some
Yeah.
kind of concessions on this front.
Yeah, because this is a very different argument, where Trump obviously campaigned on, deport them all, but when people in the US, especially the average citizen, when they think about it, they're thinking in their minds, they're thinking, these criminal Latino whatever, right? They're not really thinking of the average Filipino that's here that could potentially be uh, an undocumented migrant as well. They're not thinking about that. And then with Donald Trump coming to power, and if the idea of the entire US unelected bureaucrats, if their position is to actually counter China, and Donald Trump agrees, uh, this could put the US Philippines relationship on thin ice, I think, if he's not careful with how these deportations or what the process with the illegal migrants works out with the Philippines. Do you see that? I mean, that's my read of it. What do you think of that? Am I far off base?
That could be a risk. We're talking about 300,000. If he's gonna push through with it, that's it's a logistical nightmare. Repatriating all of them, and if they would come here on a military aircraft on handcuffs, it won't look good. And at the same time, of course, the impact on potential legal ways by which Filipinos here or looking at going to the U.S. to work as caregivers, healthcare professionals, teachers.
Hmm.
So even though there are legal routes for them, I think the this imagery or this reports of evictions or deportations won't will not conjure good pleasant welcome for the U.S. And so I think both sides will have to find ways to discuss this discreetly and of course work out a way by which both sides can try to mitigate potential negative perception and at the same time provide legal pathways for people, especially for those who have stayed in the U.S. for long, who have contributed to the U.S. Economy, and did their own thing without violating any laws. So yeah, we hope that there could be a good way out for both.
Yeah, certainly. Especially the long, long, long U.S. The state histories between our two countries, and it obviously is if we have continued good relations, it's good for everybody all around, especially with the growth of the Indo-Pacific region and the Asian countries. So hopefully whatever's happening in your country, especially with this bizarre impeachment scandal with Sara Duterte, that is, uh, threatening the life. I read that she was saying that should her family be harmed, then she would like somebody to go assassinate Marcos Jr. and his family as revenge
Something like
killing.
that, like a
That's not good.
conditional threat. Some,
This
of course, doesn't say
Traditional?
threat.
it's like a mobster movie, kind of.
Yeah,
This is like
like a
mobster
conditional.
family.
I mean,
If
yeah, I
something
mean,
happens to me, I will
Yes.
ask someone to
from the outside, right? I mean, Americans think of the Philippines, if to the extent that they think of the Philippines at all, they think of it as sort of sort of a nascent democracy struggling to figure itself out after years of dictatorship, and then you hear these crazy stories about drug dealers being whacked by the thousands by the police, alleged drug dealers, I should say, since none of them have ever been convicted.
During the
And
Duterte term.
and it sounds really lawless, and it sounds almost like Central America during the death squad period in the 1980s. Like, what's the truth? Like, if you visit the Philippines, is it chaotic? Is it safe? What's it like?
Well, I think the excesses, the abuses in the drug war are a bit overhyped.
Mhm.
The situation here is, different from El Salvador or Guatemala, or maybe some parts of Mexico. And I think Duterte, the father Rodrigo, and of course his allies, of course, warned about the consequences of the country descending into a narco state, and
Mhm.
so he justified his strong stance against crimes and drugs. On this basis, the Golden Triangle in Southeast Asia, the border between Laos,
Mhm.
Myanmar, and part of Cambodia. So, I think he's concerned that the country might become the next nexus of this criminal enterprise. But of course, the abuses and the excesses committed during that campaign put the country in the international scene. Not the way the country would want to be, greeted or be known for. But certainly, yeah, it left a mark in the country's human rights record at that time.
Yeah, and let's not forget when Sarah's dad, when Rodrigo was in power, he was threatening fistfights with other world leaders. He was threatening to kick Justin Trudeau's ass. So this is, not the first time
Now,
that
that would be wrong
threats of
because
violence.
he can't.
Yeah,
It's wrong to hit a black man.
he, It's quite a
Oh,
colorful character.
Ted. Only when he's in blackface. No, I mean, and honestly, if that fight were to have happened, I would have put my money on Rodrigo. Honestly, I mean,
It
Justin
would have been
Trudeau.
better
Oh,
if it was a big bike race. I'm not sure if Justin is a fan of it, but I know Rodrigo is good with it. He goes around Davao City in big bikes, you know,
oh my God.
like doing his own security checks of the city.
At his
Personally.
age. Wow.
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 I heard he still does that,
So,
Wow. Well,
I mean,
and,
so
and
why
he's running again as mayor
is
of
there
Davao.
something
He's
is there
running again.
something about Filipino culture that makes it more amenable to these like political dynasties like this, or is this just sort of a moment in time? I mean, obviously we have them here in America too. We had the Kennedys. We still do have the Kennedys. We just have one just to become a cabinet member. But I mean, it seems like we hear more about it in the Philippines.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, the way political dynasties have entrenched themselves into the, democratic setup in the Philippines. So, there's a joke, that in Europe, the feudalism, and the monarchy is already long dead, and the monarchy is just in paper. But in the Philippines, we still elect, monarchy. So you have the king, the patriarch as governor of the province. You have the son as mayor of one town, another son a mayor of another town.
mm,
The vice governor is the wife, the queen. And so, in Europe, the monarchy is over, but in the Philippines, it's very much alive.
And
But
why
they
is
are
that?
legitimized during elections. So that's a different story.
Why is that?
So I think the culture of having a family, a strong family,
Hmm.
a strong leader to take care of the community. I think that's rooted in the country's socio-cultural fabric, the psyche
So it's
that
not really patriarchal because, I mean, the Philippines has had more female leaders than the United States has had,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
I
familiar. Yeah.
agree. We already had two lady presidents.
mm.
So I think it has less to do with patriarchy itself, but the family, and the father is a central figure to that. A strong family that takes care of the rest of the community. So I think that is the loophole in the psyche, or the socio-cultural element of the country that was exploited, capitalized by political dynasties to strengthen, to deepen, to entrench themselves in the country's political system.
Yeah, and it's also a very Catholic culture, right, Lucio?
Agree, agree. So we are the Christian majority country in Asia. I think over 90% Catholics. But I would say that we are even more Catholic than Vatican or Italy or Spain.
Yes.
Uh, we still do not have divorce in the Philippines.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
Yeah.
There's
So
no legal divorce in the
legal
Philippines?
divorce to this day, 2025. So
Wow.
that speaks volume of the strength of the Catholic tradition, and the norms. Despite change elsewhere, including in the Philippines, a lot of things has changed in terms of norms and mores, but certain issues like divorce is still, no politicians would run on a platform of legalizing divorce, because it's like political suicide, knowing
Wow.
the sentiment of especially the Catholic Church, which remains very influential in the country.
Although it's funny, right? Because like one of the very first laws that passed in the Chinese Revolution and in the French Revolution were for divorce, legalizing divorce. And in France, it took them the divorces were backed up for decades in the courts because so many people were waiting to get divorced. There's got to be the Philippines must have bad marriages, right? I mean, there must, I
That
mean, there must be people who would get divorced
there
if they had the
are
chance.
there are civil society and progressive groups in Congress and some in the Senate, but they remain still quite on the fringe. Of course, they're trying
Wow.
to make some strides, but still,
Is abortion legal in the Philippines?
abortion is illegal
Hmm.
in the country.
Huh. That's unique. That's unusual. Usually, it would go the two would go hand in hand, marriage and no divorce and no abortion. Whereas like, for example, my ethnic background is Lao Chinese, but my family's mostly Lao the last many generations. So I'm more familiar with that culture. And in Laos, abortion is still 100 to this day 100% illegal. However, divorce is allowed.
No.
So, but
Yeah, that's more
you're forced.
common.
Yeah, but no abortion. There's no, if and or buts. No, if you were raped, if the, life of the mother. There's no exceptions at all in Laos. It's just no abortion, no legal
So,
abortion.
so is that like so in the Philippines? Is there like a cultural like don't ask, don't tell kind of situation where people's marriage is bad, but maybe someone is sort of more or less openly carrying on with someone who they're not married to, but everyone
Oh.
knows?
I agree. So this is an emerging social concern because
Mm,
we, without divorce, there are few recourses. We have annulment, which takes time and takes a lot costly, and so some people who just don't can't seem to work out their marriage, they ended up just informally divorcing, without the blessing of the state, so it's like an illegal, the
mm,
wife or the husband took other partners,
yeah.
Hmm.
so it's just but if somebody initiate a legal case, either of them can be put in hot water, but
Hmm.
this is like an informal arrangement, which is gaining steam, and so that's why some groups are saying that in order to address this, the country should consider looking at divorce as a way to uh, make this option accessible to everyone without resorting to very costly, legal annulment proceedings, which takes time also, and legalizing the separation and allowing partners in difficult marriages to
Yeah.
have the second chance.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
But
This
it's still
is
an uphill climb.
fascinating. Very, very interesting conversation. I know it's kind of we started out in politics. Now we're talking about. I
Well,
mean, it's still
culture
politics,
is
right?
related to
This is.
politics. Yeah.
It is. It is. Which is very fascinating because, obviously here in the U.S. I have a lot of Filipino friends, and some are divorced, but they're Filipino American, so
Hmm.
they didn't get married in the Philippines. They're married here, so it's it happens just like everybody else in the U.S. But we would love to have you back, Lucio. This is such an enlightening conversation, especially since right now the Duterte thing, the Sara Duterte thing, is put on ice because it's the summer break or spring. Is it spring break? You guys have the spring break for the Congress?
We have the Senate break.
The Senate break.
It's
Oh, it's different. Different times for the House and the.
uh, I think the same time.
Oh, okay.
So, but now because of also preparation for the coming elections. So most senators, especially those re-electionists, as well as those in Congress, are preparing, for the coming May midterm elections.
Okay, so when I'm going to be watching this stuff, I hope you will join us again and keep us abreast of what's happening with this emerging relationship with Trump and Marcos Jr. and this Sara Duterte wild mobster story. I don't know how else to describe it. I know it's very late there. I appreciate so much that you stayed up late for us, or maybe stayed up late for a date. We don't know. It's Valentine's Day night.
I put it on a temporary break, but I'll return to it as soon as this is over.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We had a great time. Very informative. Lucio Pitlo III, he's the president of the Philippine Association for Chinese Studies, and also he writes a lot of op-eds and papers that you can check out under his name. Just Google him, and you'll find that he's written a whole ton of stuff. Thank you so much, Lucio. Hope to see you again.
Thank you. Looking forward to that. More power to your show.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lucio.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I didn't know all of I mean, I assume that I know these, things about the Philippines because there's so many Filipinos in Los Angeles, right? So, but I take for granted that they're Filipino American and that the laws in the motherland don't reflect, how Filipino Americans behave. Just like, I guess I don't think about it. I'm Lao American. I don't behave probably like a Lao person from Laos.
Oh, I'm sure not. No, that's always like that's a thing, right? I mean, even like my mother was born in France and didn't come here until she was, I guess, 25 or 23, 25. And even so, she was a woman kind of between two cultures, right? She was never fully Americanized. She was never fully French. When she went back, she didn't really feel completely at home because America had changed her.
I see.
You just see that a lot. I mean, my ex-wife was the same way. She was born in Taiwan, and she's, obviously she's American, but when she went back there, the Taiwanese did not really view her as a real Taiwanese.
Yeah, I wonder we were gonna go to Laos, but then COVID hit, so we couldn't go. I wanted to go for the first time when my son was still small enough for me to strap to my chest.
Go to the Plain of Jars.
Oh, I plan on it for sure. But then COVID hit, and so we said, okay, we'll just wait until he gets to an age where he can remember the trip.
That's smart,
right? So we're coming up very soon, right? He turned 7 this year, so maybe in the next year or two. That's if I get a new job, if we start making some income.
Yep.
Then maybe we'll go. But
nowadays you can just climb into the wheel well. And
that's right. Just get onto an American military jet going in and out of Laos, well,
or commercial.
Or I mean, you can just climb in with the pups. Climb in with the dogs. I don't know.
But dog will keep you warm.
I wouldn't mind. I'm a dog person, so I would totally be in there. But yeah, I'm curious to see how the culture would respond to me. Right. Knowing that, hey, I'm one of you, but I think you could tell from my gait, the way I walk, the way I talk, the way I stand, the way I move, the way I dress, obviously would be
the way you keep your hair, everything.
Right. Telltale everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how
even here in New York, sometimes people ask, like, oh, how can you tell someone's a tourist? And it's like, oh, I can tell from your shoes, Also, I mean, if you wear really bright colors or beige, you're not a New Yorker.
Beige?
Beige is like prohibited at the New York City border. It's taken away from you.
Interesting. I like beige, khakis and camels, or black.
Oh, khakis. No one wears those here at all.
No, khaki color, not actual khakis. The color khaki.
Mm-hmm.
But like I have a great trench coat. Yeah, it's a whole different, but again, I have the West Coast.
This is a standard New York.
Yeah.
This is a light black.
You guys are so drab. Whereas like Californians are like, blah, look at my pink and red. Like,
yeah, true. We're just practical. Everything's filthy, and we just don't want to be cleaning our clothes every 5 seconds.
Oh, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's pretty gross. New York is pretty gritty. Anyway, that's gonna do it for Ted and I. I hope you guys learned a thing or two, as I did. I don't know about you, Ted. I learned
it was
a thing
absolutely
or two from
fascinating.
Lucio.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I like to have like a Filipino scholar join us.
It's such a big and important country, and it's completely off the radar. We never talk about it.
We never talk about the Philippines, but it is so
the
vital.
Philippines were in the news is when Imelda Marcos, like her shoe collection was in the news. That's it.
That's true. But for the most superficial reason, right?
Yeah.
Americans don't remember what was happening in the Philippines, who her husband
what
was.
it is.
They just know the first lady had a bazillion pairs of shoes, of fancy designer shoes. That's all they remember.
I mean, look, the geography of the Philippines alone is insanely weird. All those little islands,
That's and they look beautiful. I would like to go there too. If I really could, I wish I could like country hop in Southeast Asia and go to all of these, like Cebu Island in the Philippines. Have you seen the waters out there? That's one of my.
It's really beautiful.
I want to go. Mm-hmm. It looks so beautiful, but then it's paired with this just desperate poverty.
Well, that's true about most of the world. That's true about the United States. I mean, did you see this crazy article? We should talk about it. That came out yesterday in the Politico. Blink and you'll miss it. But it was a really fascinating statistical analysis of basically, why did Democrats not understand how pissed off Americans were about the economy? The Democrats look at the unemployment rate. They're like, it's 4.2%. That's good. People should be happy. Well, this guy, he leads an organization that tries to analyze how statistics are compiled. Well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics counts you as employed if you've given up looking for work, or if you're marginally employed, like literally homeless people who pick up an hour of like day labor somewhere in a week are considered to be fully employed by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So if you count all the people as unemployed who basically make no money and can't pay bills or rent or anything, and are like living outside or crashing on their friends' sofas, the unemployment rate is 23.7%. That's the same as at the height of the Great Depression in 1933.
Wow. But did they count the number of unemployed the same way as we do now? Because we do math tricks.
They have changed the way over the years that they calculate. Same thing with the inflation rate. The inflation rate was relatively low by the time that Kamala Harris faced her election. It was about 2 or 3%, no big deal. But the thing is, the consumer price index, according to this article, is calculated based on a basket of about 80,000 items. Now, the thing is, they look at the average price of those items, right? Well, the thing is, the prices of the items that working class and poor people are most affected by, staples like food, eggs, those items rose much faster than many of the items that are in that basket that are, some of which their prices fell, but only rich people buy those items. Like, for example, the price of a Tesla has dropped tremendously, right?
Yeah.
And so, so that's, it didn't so in other words,
us poors can have one now.
The voters weren't lying or stupid when they said we're suffering, and the Democrats they didn't have access to accurate information. They were in their Beltway bubble. They might have had a different campaign if they knew how really fucking miserable. I said the word might. Democrats are stupid. But they might have, but I mean, the fact is that they had their heads up their own ass because they couldn't see the numbers. The reality is that the United States is a really poor country. We have we don't rank well compared to other countries on things like, survival of
healthcare,
infant mortality, healthcare, the ability to afford college.
I mean, in other countries like Brazil, we see the favelas, right?
Public health.
I mean, we go to downtown LA, and it's a favela.
Yeah, West Virginia is a favela, the size of a state.
Right, like the whole of
just
all of Appalachia is a favela.
I mean, I remember. I mean, it's hilarious, right? Because my kid, he was raised in the Hamptons. Now, granted, I didn't. I lived in the slums of the Hamptons, north of the highway, not like on the ocean, but it's still the Hamptons. And it was hilarious because he would say, like, Daddy, like, we're poor. And I was like, oh my God, son, we have our own pool. like, let me take you. And so I had to like educate him and show him like where real, I was like, this is how most people live, and like, Yeah, my dad used to do that to me in downtown LA in the 80s.
So
Mm-hmm.
if anyone thinks back to like the 80s of the New York of the 80s, right? Like the Ghostbusters era,
I was here.
That's what it looked like.
I was here.
And it was a similar but West Coast look in downtown LA in the 80s. It's all revitalized now, and it's starting to go back down, by the way.
I was going to say LA's a pit.
Now, but there was a time when Staples Center opened and all, you know, in the mid 2000s, and I would say
I would say from the late 90s to the mid aughts were a good period.
And when I was a kid, it was, I mean, you had literally, if you were coming to a red light in downtown LA in the 80s, you would have some like cracked out homeless dude jump across your windshield to spit on it and wipe it with an old newspaper.
Dudes.
The squeegee dude, but it's with his spit. And I remember
didn't even have a squeegee.
No, it was seared into my memory as a little girl in downtown LA because I went, because he jumped on top of the car. And my dad was, you know, he'd been through it before, right? Like he's a social worker.
Homeless people are worse in LA because it's hot. There's no trees. I mean, there's trees. They're useless trees that don't provide any shade, right?
Right. No, they're
palm trees.
They're decorative.
They're decorative. I mean, I have to say, if I were ever the mayor of LA, planting trees would be a top priority for me, just to cool down the city.
Valuable real estate, Ted.
On the sidewalks. Anyway, there's plenty of rooms in the middle of the road. Anyway, the point is, trees are great. But
I agree.
But the point is, the homeless people in LA, man, they have that caked, dried up skin.
Yes,
they're more terrifying than in other places.
Because it's sweaty and it's dry skin and it looks even worse.
The sun is intense.
And the sun is intense, and the streets have that sizzle coming off of it in the summer, and it stinks, and you smell all the pee.
And it doesn't rain much. Yeah.
No, so the stench of, like I said, I lived downtown as an adult, and the stench of pee just radiates through the air in the summer months
all the time
into my fancy loft, right? In my Art Deco loft. I'm like, God, I have my great, beautiful loft. And then I open the window and just the pee is pungent and just flies right in your window.
It's a skanky city, man.
Yeah. And it's getting back there. And, you know, part of me, I can't say I'm not nostalgic for it. I'm not gonna lie, Ted. I'm kind of nostalgic for gritty New York and gritty downtown LA, like my childhood. But you know,
come on up.
You know, I know. All right, we'll leave it right there. All everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Happy Valentine's Day to anybody that's celebrating. Hubby and I are not doing any. We just don't. I'm just not festive. I'm just not like, don't be gay. Like, come on.
It's an extremely gay holiday.
It's such a stupidly gay holiday. Just, I mean, it's totally made up. It's totally corporate. It's just like it wasn't a thing for me when I was young. It's not a thing for me now.
And don't forget all the misery, you know, like we talked about Peanuts. Remember, he never gets any Valentines.
I know.
But and I'm old enough that it was still like that, where, like now if a class makes elementary school kids do Valentine's, they make them do that for all the other kids.
We just did that.
They didn't used to do that. Like, it used to be like only for the people you liked. And some kids didn't get any Valentines.
I remember those days, Ted. Mm-hmm. My kids' class, we just wrote out like 25 Valentines this week. So I know. I get it. Yeah. Although my son is he's a little bit of a jerk.
He didn't want to send them to everyone?
No. He made special ones because we had 2 sets, because you had to buy 2 sets in order to have enough Valentines. He made some with stickers and goodies, and some with just the card.
Oh, so it's like that. Some people get like, so it's like seating at the airline. Some people are like platinum plus, blah blah blah. Commander,
all his classmates get
douchebag class, and then other people are just like coach.
All the classmates get a card,
but
some got stickers and stuff.
So some classmates are more equal than others, as Orwell would say.
But Ted, you wanna guess? There was a certain kind of classmate that got also. There was one thing in common the set of classmates that got all the goodies?
Girls.
Girls.
Of course. Yeah. Well,
already.
Your kid's not gay.
In kindergarten already.
Yeah.
And he told my husband, he said, "Daddy, all girls are pretty."
Oh, I like that. That's good.
And I went, "Oh God, you're already gonna be one of those guys? Oh,
that's awesome.
God.
Good for him.
You're 6, dude. Like, chill. All girls are pretty. Yeah. And now we're doing special Valentines for the girls.
That's a good attitude. All girls are pretty. All right. I'm letting that go. All right.
All right, everybody. Have a great Valentine's weekend. Have a great weekend. I'll be back at 2 p.m. Eastern with my Friday wrap. And man, is there a lot to talk about politically this week.
Do tune in. See Manila.
Adios, amigos. We'll see you at 2 p.m. Otherwise, bye.
Ciao.